Today, I want to talk a little bit about party power. And the first thing that I think is pretty obvious to all of us is that partisanship is ruining our country. And we see that every day. We had, Barack Obama was our last president. He did things that he thought were good. A lot of people were upset about them. They criticized those things. Now Donald Trump is president, and he's undoing all of those things, putting in new things in place. And what we can imagine, a lot of people are upset about that. They're criticizing that. And I'll bet when we get our next Democratic president, which will probably be sometime soon, just because it tends to fluctuate back and forth, that president will then try and undo all of the things that Trump did and maybe redo the things that Obama did. Our political discourse is nasty, it's divisive, and our political action doesn't lead to getting things done. We're vacillating back and forth and essentially staying in place. We need to move forward towards solutions, and the way to do that is by eliminating partisanship. And the first thing that we have to do in order to eliminate partisanship is understand why the parties are and how they work. So I'm going to get a little bit academic here, but hopefully we can all follow along. I'm going to talk about just a fictitious community and the voting habits in that community. This is their first election. This community, they come together and they have an election. And the natural distribution of political thoughts looks something like this. In statistics, we call this curve a normal curve. And it means that most people are in the very center, and as you go away from the center, towards the left, you get fewer and fewer people. Towards the extreme right, you get fewer and fewer people. So again, most people are naturally in the center, and you have fewer people out in the extremes. But you do have people. So the first election happens, and as you can see, most people vote for the centrist candidate. I want to talk a little bit about what that means for the satisfaction of the population. So certainly, these people have no dissatisfaction. The people right in the middle, the largest group of people, have no dissatisfaction in the election. But as you can see, as you move out towards the sides, these people are considered centrists, but they have a little bit of dissatisfaction, and these people more so, and so on out until the outside. So you have 100% election participation, and when you total up all these people, so there's 12 people who have -1, both going, they're dissatisfied for different reasons. This side of people is dissatisfied because they wish things were more left. This side is dissatisfied because they wish things were more right. But their quantity of dissatisfaction ends up being the same as you go out. And you get a total, when you add all this up, of -96 satisfaction. So even though you've made the biggest group of people happy, you have a fair amount of dissatisfaction, and you have some people who are big. So what happens? These people out here, the left in my particular example, somebody gets together and says, look, if we cooperate, we can look at all these blue lines. Look at all these blue people. If all our blue bloc votes together for a single candidate, then we can overpower the centrist candidate. And so that's what they do. They come back in the next election, behind closed doors. The 4 people who were out here towards the extremes, they come a little bit towards the center. And by combining and voting as a block with other people who feel similarly to them, they're able to get more votes than the centrist candidate. So the distribution of voting has changed. And this kind of distribution is called a skewed distribution. Now, this no longer represents how the people feel. It's a skewed distribution because people aren't voting according to their own convictions. They're blocking up with other people to over-represent a particular set of values. I want to show what happens then when we analyze that. We still had 100% election participation, so that's exciting. We now have people here are fully satisfied. So these 4 people experience no dissatisfaction. These people, even though they voted for that candidate, are still a little bit dissatisfied, but less dissatisfied. This person used to be, I think it was at -3 and -4, -5, and -6. So each of these people is less dissatisfied. And this block of people here is the same. It's not that big of a difference to them. But starting from here and moving out this way, now a larger population is more dissatisfied. So on the whole, we have 14 people out of this population of 47 whose happiness increased because of partisanship. We have 6 people who are unaffected. They didn't care. But we now have 27 people who are worse off. They are now more dissatisfied. In the prior example, the most dissatisfied person felt, -6. They were 6 away from being satisfied. Now the most dissatisfied person is at -9. So we've almost added 50% dissatisfaction to the population as a whole, but the partisans are satisfying themselves. So what do you think happens now? Well, certainly these people over here aren't going to just stand back and let the left win the election overall. They see that strategy, that party strategy, and say, hey, if we get together and vote as a bloc, we only need 1 person to come over from this moderate area in order to win it. There's another thing that's happened. These people here in the middle feel like the election was stolen from them. They've become disenchanted with the process. They think, how is it possible that somebody so far away from what the population wants could be elected? So what happens is this. First off, participation has gone down. Voters in the middle have decided not to participate. You now have one party block voting over here, and because this party block was able to attract a moderate, they've got more people now, and we now have somebody on the right. This kind of distribution is called a bimodal distribution in statistics. It sounds similar to bipartisan. But I want to remind you of a couple things. This distribution is a distribution of people's voting behaviors. It's not a distribution of how people actually feel. People are moderate and centrist. And now we're starting to see, again, voter participation go down. So now only 82% of people participate. This, by the way, would be a landmark education, or a landmark achievement here in America. In America, we get excited when we have, up in the 70s, 80s in participation. Most of our elections are at 50%. And let me show you what that looks like. So several elections through this cycle of partisanship chipping away at the different sides, and because less people in the middle are participating, now the people on the extremes have to make less concessions. Because this group is sitting out, the extremes no longer have to overpower this line. They've just got to power the people way far on the other side. So now people are out further this way. We've moved the line further that way, and we only have 50% voter participation. This group in the middle is sitting out. We even have some people who are rather extreme sitting it out. Kind of far right people and far left people are thinking, this system is craziness, so I'm just not going to participate. This is the reality we are looking at now in modern America. We have a society that believes in moderate politics, that believes in centrist views, that believes in compromise. But only 50% of the people are participating, and the people who are participating are in a bimodal distribution. It's only the people out on the far sides, or it's primarily the people out on the far sides of the spectrum. So a question that as independents, we have to ask ourselves this question. Must the people on the far left and on the far right always be dissatisfied? Because if so, then we're always going to have parties are always going to be a draw, because the people who are over on the sides are always going to want to get a more powerful voice. The answer is no. The solution to this does not always have to be power in the center and partisan politics in the middle. That can be an answer, and that is an answer that will create more satisfaction amongst the population as a whole, but it also doesn't have to be an answer. Let me talk about two of those things. The first thing that you can do if you're on the extremes of the distribution, or if you're not in the center of the distribution, is to exercise political power. One of the ways that you can do that is a great speech. So imagine somebody standing up in front of an audience and delivering a riveting speech that changes the way people think. When you do that, you change the distribution. Everybody shifts. You shift it more your way. And so by persuading people that where you are on the distribution is right, that's one way to move the distribution your way. So on the other side of things is great grassroots activation. So instead of doing it in a single big activity where you just change everybody's mind all at once, you can do it with little activities in people's homes, on the streets. You get out the word that your position is the right position, and when you do that, you shift things your way. Of course, either of these tactics can be used to switch the distribution in any direction. So when you do that, if you are not in the center, rather than just grouping up with other people and overpowering the rest of the population, you can actually use activities to persuade the population to come your way. That's the first way of power. The second thing is tolerance. We don't have to make rules that require people to all follow a particular policy that lines up with any of these. With some issues, we may be able to find that by just letting everybody handle things their own way, we can create no satisfaction. This person gets to do what they want, as does these people all the way that way, and as do these people all the way this way. So if you can avoid creating legislation that forces people to act in accordance with the middle, you can create no dissatisfaction. So certainly that's an exciting path. Maybe you can't get quite that dramatic, but you can create legislation that satisfies the vast majority of people and only cuts out the people on the extreme. When you do that, remember our original dissatisfaction number was up in the 90s, nearly 100. This is down to 14, so there's very little dissatisfaction in a society that allows its people to act independently. So what do we do about this? Our overarching mission is to reactivate the disenfranchised. These people in the middle of this distribution who aren't participating now and who make it seem like politics is bipolar, bipartisan, bimodal, we want to get these people back involved in the system and show them that by participating, real change can be had. You do not have to accept this. This is not real. It is fake, and it's been forced upon us by partisanship. And how do we do it? The first thing we do is provide great choices. Provide candidates who actually do advocate for policies in the middle. Sometimes these candidates may not even be centrists at a personal level, but they understand that not everything has to be their way specifically. They're candidates who invite dialogue with people across the whole distribution of political ideas. By putting those kind of people up for election, people are going to get excited, the middle group is going to come back and get re-engaged. The second thing is to organize. Get people together in meetings, on the phone, in homes, raise money. By doing those things, we can draw attention and votes for these people in the middle so that they have a real hope and a real chance of winning. And the last thing is communicating. Mass communications, TV, social media, signage, billboards, all those sorts of things. I am confident that by taking these actions together and by working across the full political spectrum, we can change this and we can create a society that is more satisfied with itself and that it makes progress in a specific direction as opposed to just seesawing back and forth and really doing nothing. Of course,